So, as I said, one of my other hats is working for a think tank called the Centre for Migration Control. And I thought I would do a little roundup of some of the research that we've done in 2024. I think that 2024 is going to be remembered as being the calm before the storm. As an eventful year, it was an eventful year. We had the riots, of course, we had the election of Trump. But actually, I think that, the next 10 years are going to, they're going to be some of the craziest in living memory. I really do believe that, due in no small part to some of the things that I'm going to talk about today with regards to immigration. But first of all, I just want to run through some of the key statistics around immigration for 2024. It's going to be a statistic-heavy segment, I'm afraid, so strap in.
Good to have all the information in one place.
Yes. So, total immigration to the UK in 2024 was 1.2 million. That's gross. So that's 1.2 million new people, 80 to 90% of which are from non-EEA countries coming into Britain, which is down, to be fair, from the 1.32 million in 2023, but it's still historically unprecedented levels of demographic change.
Well, until the numbers are revised 2 years from now, and it was actually like 3 million people.
Yes.
But that's a city the size of Birmingham every single year.
Yes. And the four most common countries that migrants came from were India, Pakistan, China, and Nigeria. Okay, so these are countries with very, very little in common with ours, right, in terms of their, just their view of the world and their lifestyles. So EU nationals accounted for only 10% of total immigration. And I recognise that historically people have had problems with EU nationals as well. Yeah. But if it were up to me, I would take EU nationals over non-EEA nationals any day of the week, because whatever you want to say, we share a greater degree of cultural proximity with people in Europe than we do.
I have met quite a few perfidious Poles, though. No offence, Poles, I love you, but still, so. Quite a few on the dole.
Yes. So of the 1.2 million, 280,000 were work visas, right? So these are your supposed skilled workers. However, however, something worth noting is, as our research has showed, the salary of skilled workers over the last 2 years has dropped by £10,000, right? So they, in a lot of cases, they aren't even
paying what it used to.
Indeed, they're not even breaking even when it comes to their contributions and what they take out of the system. But we will get to that in a minute. Can I have this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember how to use this. There we go. Good stuff. And beyond that, 97,000 came via asylum applications. So this includes the small boats and other forms of illegal migration. 432,000 came from study visas. And this is something that is growing in salience, the recognition of the fact that we have hundreds of thousands of students coming here, also bringing dependents, although there was legislative reform on that, which made it more difficult for students to bring dependents, but still happens.
Hundreds of thousands of
it still happens.
Just go to Oxford, Bath, and you'll see it in the streets.
Yes, absolutely.
But just a quick thing on this. This is a massive issue because this is literally what's propping up a lot of the sort of, universities that otherwise wouldn't be profitable.
Yeah. So I'm going to get into some of our actual research then. So the first one, which we published in February, so it does actually mostly pertain to 2023, but it's still very relevant, is economic inactivity amongst migrants aged 16 to 64, which is to say working age, right? So in 2023, the number of economically inactive migrants aged working age reached its highest point in history, in recorded history, surpassing the 2022 total, which was itself a record high. So the public sector expenditure, this includes students, by the way, on economically inactive migrants, has been about £36 billion since the start of 2020. Okay.
Everyone wonders why we're so poor.
Indeed. Everyone wonders why everything's so expensive, why public services don't work as they should, and so forth. The next piece, related, is the record number of migrants in the UK are not in work. So in the second quarter of 2024, there were as many as 1.7 million non-UK nationals either economically inactive or unemployed.
And so are they claiming benefits?
Well, the pro rata cost of such a huge level of migrant worklessness, and this doesn't account, this only accounts for them using public services that are available to all of us, doesn't account for benefits, is £8.5 billion. That's your money. That's your money.
I know.
It's our money.
And this is without assuming that a significant portion of those might actually be in work in the black market.
This is the other
well.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes, we're only going by what's officially available from places like the ONS and so on.
So much that is kept off of the records that you cannot look into on purpose.
Yes, indeed. So over 70% of migrants who arrived in 2023 on a work visa impose a net cost on the Treasury, right? This is crucial to understand, because this completely discredits the notion that mass migration is some way
into the economy,
economically beneficial for us. So this is based on a report put out by the Migration Advisory Committee, which is the quango that advises the government on migration policy, occupied obviously by a bunch of leftists and open borders activists. Where are we? There we are. So 70.6% of long-term migrants who arrived in the UK in 2023 via a certificate of sponsorship earned less than the £38,000 needed for them to make a positive economic contribution. So once again, this is a huge increase on previous years, because in 2022, 55% of those using a certificate of sponsorship were set to enter a job in which they would earn less than 38,000, and in 2021 it was 53%. So it's a massive increase. Put
simply, 2/3 of the migrants that are here are just costing us money. It would be better if they weren't here.
And again, this whole idea that we need migrants for our economy to function is just total nonsense.
It's crippling us.
Yeah.
Well, whenever I hear the term skilled migration, I just think back to that clip of Kelly Osbourne saying, well, Donald Trump, if you're going to throw out all of those Mexicans, who's going to be cleaning your toilets? And all of her co-hosts go, no, don't say that. Not because really they know that they think she's wrong, but really because, no, you're not supposed to say that part. Yeah. That's not what we're talking about.
I've got to say, I go back and forth on this narrative that we're sold that we need these people because British people don't want to do these jobs. I think, actually, that there is a certain element of the British character that thinks of itself as being above certain types of work. To a certain extent. Maybe...
in a way, yes, but in another way, no, right? So there's
if they're paid enough, then they will do the work.
There is a certain kind of bourgeois person who believes that working in service jobs is too menial for themselves. Sure. But most people aren't that person.
No, sure.
A lot of my family's working class. Like, I used to clean toilets before the minimum wage existed. Yeah. Because I needed...
Before the foreigners arrived.
Yeah, no, and ironically was.
Now you'd be out of luck, sorry to say.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't even be able to get that job. But the point is, it was a summer job and I needed the money, and I was glad to have the money. Yes. You know what I mean? So,
but it is a chicken and egg thing. Because
why import all of these foreigners when we have so many lazy teenagers? You also don't have to pay them very much either.
This is a great point, because I went to Salisbury for a little weekend away with my wife recently, and it was so weird to have English teenagers serving us food in restaurants. Yeah. It was just really bizarre. I was like, oh my God.
It's the same experience of going into a petrol station in Cornwall and it only being English people working there.
Yeah. It's like, they will actually work if you allow them to do the jobs.
Yeah. But the point is, obviously migration suppresses wages, which, is why it's a kind of chicken and egg thing, because if these jobs don't pay enough, then English people won't want to do them, therefore bring in more migrants, blah, 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 all the rest of it. So the next thing I wanted to just call your attention to, actually. Now, this is not our work. This is not from the Centre for Migration Control, but it is the work of people who I would very much encourage everybody watching to go and follow. This is two Anons, Juice and Aylmer, who's already come up today. Both very good boys doing excellent work when it comes to data. This is a map of the UK that tells you, in each region, what percentage of social housing tenants were born outside of the UK.
And if you want to look at this is migrationfacts.com.
Yeah, I don't know if you can use that to hover over.
Oh, well, I'll do it. Yeah. Where do we want to go?
Why don't we go to Swindon?
Swindon?
Let's take a look. There we go. 11.6. There we go. So Swindon Central, almost a third of social housing tenants in Swindon Central were born outside of the UK. Yeah. How insane is that?
Well,
it makes perfect sense.
Swindon's diversification has been very recent.
Yes.
Within the last 5 years. Prior to that, Swindon had Manchester Road, but that was it.
Yeah.
It was very, very English town.
Indeed, yes. Well, I would encourage everyone to go and check this out because it's very interesting.
Zoom back out again for that. I just wanted to point out, like most maps of bad things in the UK, London represents a tumour.
London is red. Yes.
It's literally a tumour, and Birmingham is a slightly less big tumour. Yes. But both will get worse and both will spread.
Yeah. Well, there are areas of London.
Some areas where it's 70%.
Well, there's areas of Ealing in London where it's in the order of 75%.
Just why are we battery farming foreigners?
Because it's good for the economy.
It's so preposterous. It's so preposterous.
And each of those social housing situations will represent a case almost certainly like that one that was highlighted by Sadiq Khan, where they go into the house, the children are dying because they've got mold all over the place. They've taped up the vents because they don't know how to air the place out. It's damp, it's cold, and they complain saying it's our fault.
Yeah. So if migrants are not some kind of massive economic boom for the country, then you would at least hope that we're bringing in people who are at least learning useful skills that they might be able to bring for our country or take back to their own in order to make their own better, so there's less migration from them, blah, blah, blah. But no, only a quarter of new foreign students are strategically important, or are on strategically important university courses. So less than a quarter of recent foreign students are on courses that the Department for Education classifies as strategically important. So in 2022 to 23, there were 459,000 foreign students that began a course at a UK higher education institution, but only 111,000 of those are on courses that the British government views as important for supporting the NHS, engineering, technology, and various labour market needs.
So 3/4 of it is frivolous.
3/4 of it is like, management and, project planning or whatever, degrees that are just like basically fake degrees. No offence to anybody studying those.
Well, it's not even that they're fake degrees, but it's like they can do those degrees in their own countries. Why are they?
Well, again, it's kind of similar to something that I said earlier. A lot of university courses are just the university justifying its own existence. And we can't forget, by the way, as well, that foreign students are a massive financial boom for universities because they charge them 3 times as much as now.
Yeah, they're at least double in the universities that I've been in.
Yeah,
but sometimes more.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Now we're going to get into the more truly, obviously harmful elements of migration, because we've addressed the economic side, which is very important and kind of
impoverishing us.
Speaks for itself, the economic side. But migrants, our research shows, are disproportionately more likely to commit crime. So the foreign-born arrest rate is 34% higher than that of the British-born population. In 2023, there was 1 arrest of a British national per 94 people. However, for foreign-born nationals, this rate surges to 1 in 70. So we are bringing people here who are not an economic benefit. They are not, they are criminal more to a greater degree than the native population. They are not doing anything useful. And they are occupying housing that could be occupied by native British people.
Yeah.
So
it's not just housing; it's all the infrastructure.
Yes,
all of it. Like, you had to get the train here, didn't you?
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, well, it was
awful.
Yeah, it was crowded and full of people that, were
very loud,
overpriced.
Yeah. Yes, very much so. Yes. But that then brings us to this final piece of research, which is that 49% of the British public want to see a freeze on all non-essential immigration. And that's zero. That's gross zero, right? So new polling that
That's not even the ones who are like, I think it should be lower.
Yeah.
No, that's probably another like 20 or 30% on top.
Yes. And it's important to note, by the way, that 76% of 2019 Conservative Party voters believe that Britain should freeze all immigration. All immigration. So Conservative Party, I don't know what the Conservative Party is doing. I don't know why.
Dying.
That's another topic entirely. But if you look at their base, as much as they may have voted for someone like Kemi Badenoch, there is still people in there who actually do have their heads screwed on, because they're saying that we need to stop all immigration. Yeah. So to conclude, I would say that, as we know, right, there is no credible arguments left in favour of mass migration. The economics, that's done. It's clearly a net negative. It's impoverishing us. It's making life more difficult. It's making it more difficult for young people to buy a house and start a family. It's making rent more expensive. It's making public services less efficient. It means you can't get a place in schools. The roads are more crowded. The public transport is more crowded. It's making everything in that regard worse. But even if it could be shown that mass migration was in some way economically beneficial to the UK, let's assume that it did actually raise the GDP or whatever nonsense we are fed, it still wouldn't make it right, still wouldn't make it acceptable, because of the other effects that it has. Now, obviously, I focus today, and the Centre for Migration Control focuses on quantitative research because it speaks for itself and it's very easy to use in Parliament, for example. But actually, I think what where the conversation really needs to go now that these arguments are completely discredited, is to the qualitative side, because
the moral question of dispossessing our children and grandchildren of the country that my generation inherited.
Exactly. I actually put out a bit of shameless self-promotion. I put out a video today, which I would encourage everyone to go and watch, talking about how British values is just a nonsense concept, and it is actually essentially a political construct designed to justify mass migration and multiculturalism, because we're told that to be British, it means you just believe in democracy and tolerance of different faiths and belief and liberalism and all the rest of it, and it just just doesn't, because these people that are being brought here are not British. They are not us. They are the consequence of, either misguided, let's be charitable, misguided or actively malevolent government policy. And obviously we've spoken already today about the grooming gangs, don't need to go back into that. So, I mean, all of this is to say that mass migration has been a disaster for the British Isles. It's one of the most evil things that have ever been done to our people. And however, with that being said, I do think that the discourse is really seriously beginning to shift on this. I think there are serious voices in the mainstream, in the centre, who are actually bringing some of these issues to mainstream kind of consciousness, which is good because it needs to happen. I do think that it is basically inevitable that this is addressed, as with the grooming gangs. But, it takes people who are prepared to have these conversations, uncomfortable conversations, because a lot of normal people, they have jobs, they have families to hold down, they have mortgages to pay. They don't want to go out and dissent against the state line on these things. It can be risky, but people have to do it. So I hope that this has been useful for viewers. I hope that you can take some of the statistics that I have cited today. You can go on the Centre for Migration Control.com website to see all of our research.
All the links will be in the notes for the podcast.
Yep, that too. But this isn't even all the research we've done this year. This is just the ones that I've chosen to highlight. So I'd encourage you to go take a look, because it's very interesting stuff, very useful, again, when you're trying to win over family, friends, colleagues to our position on these matters, because really, I think the data just speaks for itself.
I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, and if you want to see what else we're up to, you could always follow Bo's series, Epochs. This one's about Caesar and the Civil War beginning. And if you want to see all the other things that we're putting out, you can always follow us on Twitter. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.